So I wasn't going to analyze another shmup with Engine 9000 right away because I've done a few in a row. But then I got a comment in my Hybris video from the coder of Disposable Hero, and he said that he lost the source code and would love to see a video on it. And it's such a great game that I'm like, yeah, sure, I'd love to do that. So this is Disposable Hero from 1993, a beautiful but very difficult game. The Amiga 500 version is very hard, but the CD32 version, which is the same game visually, tones down the difficulty a bit. So that's probably the one to recommend if you're going to try it out. So it's a very nice looking game. So let's look how it is done. We'll start off with the sprites. So Sprite 4 is this line here, and it actually, because 16 pixels is the max, it's multiplexed across. If you look at the copper visualizer, yeah, they multiplex just that simple line. And then number 5 is the rest of the box. And number 6 is the score and the lives. And that's also multiplex over here. And then let's take that off. And number 7 is just finishes off the score. So checking the palette visualizer, the game is in 32 colors, so 5-bit planes. So let's check the glitter visualizer. You can see that the enemy and your shots and your ship and enemy shots, everything is blitted. So the real star of the show visually in this first level is this water. Look at how my ship reflects and the enemy reflects. So in the copper visualizer, you'll see that line going up and down as I get closer and farther from the water. So if we pause it here and investigate, you can see right here the green is when it changes colors. So all these colors are changing. If you look at the palette visualizer and you count the colors, now you have 63 colors. So you'll see corresponding to this line, it gives like a blue-green water tint to every one of the colors right on that line. So let's see that in action. As I move down and I move up, the whole line moves and changes the colors. And you'll see all these yellow lines are bitplane modulos. And bitplane modulo on the Amiga can be used to reflect everything above it. You see it in quite a few games, and it works really well for a water effect. Dutch Retro Guy on YouTube has a great video called Bitplane Modulo Tricks, and he explains how the bitplane modulo works on the Amiga, so I will link that down in the description. The game has so many great little details and animated things in the background. You can even see when these drop into the water, the splashing. So if I put the glitter visualizer on, it blits all the splashes. It's interesting that in the between level scenes, your ship actually is a sprite. So it's the first 4 sprites. So I'm not sure why he's a sprite here and not in the game. And sprite 4 here is also the background stars. So with all the sprites, you got the ship and the stars. So level 2 is another great looking one. And this one is also in 32 colors. Here's the palette visualizer. Okay, I just discovered something that I didn't know, that when you upgrade your weapon, that your shots actually become sprites. So if I take the sprites off here, you can see I still have my shots that are blit, but then there's also extra ones. So sprite 0 and 1 attached 15 colors are all the extra shots here, and they look to be vertically multiplexed. So if we kind of put the debugger over the screen, you can see the DMA stats. So the bit planes take up quite a few slots because it's 5-bit plane. And then the CPU is going, and the blitter. I love this boss here. It's so nicely animated, and just a super cool looking boss. Here he is with the blitter visualizer. And then he grows bumps on his head and shoots big flames of fire at you. So level 3 is also super beautiful and in 32 colors. I love the animation on this little membrane that shoots out. You can see that all those type of animations are blitz, like with that and with the fans here. This area with all these lights, look at them, the lights flicker. So you can see here in the palette visualizer how they cycle the colors to make the flashing effect. This underwater level has so much action and such detailed graphics. Like you really don't see these kind of detailed graphics in many shmups. Here's the blitter visualizer for this part, and look at all the blitz on these enemy bullets there. Yeah, it's crazy. And it stays at 50 frames per second all the time. This 5th level is the first one that has a gradient copper sky. So in the palette visualizer, you can see that color 0 is changed all down the screen. And with the copper visualizer, you can see it here. The green is changing color 0 all the way down, corresponding to right here. So instead of the 32 colors before, there's 57 here because of the gradient, and 46 at this moment in time on screen. And now the water effect is also back at the bottom of the screen. So in the palette, with the water, it's also changing the colors at the bottom. So now you've got 95 colors in the palette. And this is really cool when we get into these super fast tunnels here. Check out the palette visualizer, and you'll see the first 4 colors get changed by the copper on down that correspond. So if you put the copper visualizer over top, then you can see that it corresponds exactly to the 2 tunnels, and it changes colors 1, 2, 3, and color 0, and then the same down here. So the tunnel here is also animated, so if you put the blitter visualizer on, you can see that it's blitting both the top and the bottom, and it's staying at 50 frames per second the whole time. Now this last level has a lot of cool different tricks. The first thing is that Sprite 7 makes up the whole star field in the back, just that one sprite channel. If I take all the bit planes off and move up and down, you can expand the copper sky up and down. And this green here is what's changing the color of the copper sky, color 0. So with a bunch of investigation, I think I figured out what's going on here. It changes the bit plane pointers here with the purple, and then it changes the colors between the silver and the brown part. So if you look at the palette visualizer, you can see right here that it goes from a 32 color screen up top to just an 8 color screen between this purple and this purple. And then the crazy part is that below that, I think for the lava, from here on down, is dual playfield. So if you take the bit planes off and you do just bit plane 0, 2, and 4, then this orange and brown part is the front part of the dual playfield at the bottom. And if you do bit plane 1, 3, and 5, then you get the lava part, and the lava is behind the brown part. If you put them together, you can see there's that brown part, and then behind it is the lava. So that's dual playfield just on that strip. So that gives 62 colors for this whole palette. So I can move up and down, and then those parts at the bottom appear and disappear. So none of this bottom part is being blitted. It's just your ship and the boss. So yeah, this level is very, very unique. And now here is another really cool trick. You see this building that we're going into? Well, it's not really a building. It's all a trick. If you take the bit planes away, it's just a copper sky. So it's just color 0 right here. It's just horizontal lines across the whole screen, like a usually used for a copper rainbow. But here they've created an illusion that you've gone into a drawn building, but it is just the background. So you can even see it here in the copper visualizer. It's color 0. How it switches there to the lighter and there to the lighter. And then you can see the red down here for the red line, black line, red line. So yeah, that's just all the copper here. I would have never figured that out if it wasn't for this debugger. So that's amazing. I wonder what other things they could create with that same sort of trick, just using the horizontal copper bars. Definitely lots of different types of interior buildings. You can even see the wall moving here when I go up and down in the visualizer. We can see where the trick happens if we take off all the bit planes except bit plane 0 and let it run. Then you can see the stars in the background until it switches. So right there, it switches. I think that's equivalent to exactly where this beginning part ends. So right there it ends, and then it happens. So it looks like it's just past this beginning part with the fancy artwork. Once it becomes just the horizontal lines, about there is when it switches, and it's seamless when it's scrolling. So this really has me thinking about what other possibilities there are with this technique. I also wonder if it's possible to get more speed in a game. Imagine if you had like a 32 color screen over here, and then when you wanted to switch it over to just the copper, so when you do the transition over to just the copper lines, that you could then switch the screen to just be 16 colors, and then you could fight a boss that's much bigger because you're using less bit planes. I don't know if that would be possible or not. Would love to have any coders chime in. So maybe you could have parts in games that are 32 colors and then 16, and then it switches back to 32, or to 8 colors for certain areas. It's probably not possible for some reason because it would probably have been done, but still interesting to think about. So here in this last part, they even drew things on top of that back copper wall and put a shadow on it. So very, very clever. You take all those bit planes off, And there you go, back to the wall. So another wonderful Amiga game. This one was a lot of fun to go through. Hope you enjoyed it too. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care.